Heather Thorkelson!
What?
What is going on? Oh my
Oh,
god,
you know,
I'm so excited to talk to you. You don't even know.
I'm excited to talk to you.
It's like a little bit creepy. I'm like, oh my god, Heather, you're so cool. Ugh.
Oh, you're making me blush.
Oh
It's a
my
good thing
god.
this is a
Like,
podcast.
everyone
Everyone
listening to this is like, this is awkward. Like, super girl crush, everyone. I'm just gonna like put it out there right now, so you're not like halfway through the episode being like, oh, what's going on here? Like, super girl crush. Heather is like the coolest, and we're about to find out why. So stay tuned. We met recently-ish in Barcelona.
That's right, at the 7 and 7 conference.
We did, and I put down a deposit for my Antarctica trip, which is in like years and years. But I'm still really excited.
You were the first person, I think, to put down your deposit. You were like in the front row going, done, done, I'm in.
You're gonna do it. You got to do it properly, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to Antarctica with you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not fucking bail on me, Heather. So excited. We're gonna go camping just for the night, and what's the other thing? We're gonna swim in the volcano.
Most likely, yes. There's a collapsed volcano that you can go and do a polar plunge inside. So that's pretty sweet.
Oh man, I'm so excited. Like, I just wanted to like talk about that first before we even properly introduce you or anything, because
It's a good hook. Then people are like, what the hell are they talking about? Polar plunging inside of a collapsed volcano in Antarctica? We have to listen to this episode.
That's exactly right. Oh god, I'm so excited about it. I can't believe it's like years away, but it's fine. I got time to pay it off.
Yeah.
So anyone listening to this, you can come with us. Why don't I just plug it right now? Let's not wait. You can come with us to Antarctica. It's in 2022.
Yep.
Jesus. Anyway, you got loads of time to pay that sucker off. So check it out. I'm going to have all the details in the show notes. But I got to tell you that first because I want you guys to come. It's going to be awesome.
Yep.
Right. Calm down. Take it down a notch now. Heather, you give us an update. Where are you and what the hell are you doing? Like, what do you do? Why are we talking about Antarctica?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So, holy shit, this is not as easy as it should be. So I'm in Sweden. I'm based in Sweden, although I am nomadic. I have been working from anywhere, working from my laptop since 2011. I am a business consultant primarily. I started off as a life coach because that seemed like a smart thing to do back in 2011 when I decided I would never go and work for anyone else anymore. But turned into an online business consultant again, as people did in droves, but actually did well. I've done really well. I've built up a brand called Republic of Freedom, which I recently turned from a one-woman show into a collective, which is quite cool. I'm very excited about that. And then I also launched a podcast last week called Republic of Freedom Radio. So that's sort of my bread and butter of my nomadism, let's say, is Republic of Freedom. I've separated my own consultancy out to heatherthorkelson.com. So I'm doing that on the side and helping established business owners grow. But then in and amongst all of that fun stuff and sort of working and living all over the world and you know, running courses and doing all kinds of things related to business consultancy and strategy. I randomly got involved in the business of polar expeditions. So
I love it.
randomly. So here's the short and dirty backstory. I have always traveled. I had an airline pilot as a father. I started traveling pretty avidly with him when I was 8. And we moved out of the country the first time when I was 14. I'm 39 now, so that's a long ass time. I've lived in 7 different countries outside of Canada, where I'm originally from. And so I had been traveling a lot, and I used to have a really cushy corporate job. I had a lot of money, and I used all that money to travel. I lived in like a shitbox apartment in Toronto and just left every chance I got. And so in 2005, I was on a ship, an expedition ship going down the Amazon River. And I met some, just some people that worked on board, whatever. And, you casually keep in touch with them on Facebook and whatever. Fast forward to 2013, I've ditched my corporate job. I'm living in Peru. I'm a business consultant running Republic of Freedom, right? I've got this like fucking awesome 2-story penthouse apartment, like a block from the cliffs of Lima, And, but I'm feeling a little burnt out. It's 2013. You know how the first 18 months of business can really bitch slap you?
Yeah, 3 years actually. Slowly.
3 years. Yeah, seriously. Like it is. Oh my God, the peaks and valleys are just beautiful. So I was like, I'm going to slit my wrists. And this guy that I knew very loosely from 2005 from the Amazon trip suddenly is like, Heather, I need to Skype with you. And I'm like, what? Because he's kind of, I don't know him that well. You know, I'm like, why do you want to Skype with me? It's weird. And he's like, no, I got this opportunity you might be interested in. And he says, so we Skype, and he's like, do you want to come and work for this brand new company in Antarctica? Like, it's a contract position. You just come down for like 8 weeks. And he's like, I know you have the skill set. You're a people person. You're organized. You're all these things. You're a life coach, whatever. And I had already been to Antarctica. Like, I'd already just gone as a paying passenger to Antarctica, and I loved it. Mm-hmm. And so he's like telling me that I can just sort of press pause on business, tell my clients I'm going on vacation, and go and get paid to go to Antarctica for 8 weeks. So it's like, fuck yeah. So I went off and did that. And that snowballed into like a much longer engagement with that company, like helping them build their company culture basically, and building up the positions on board that had to do with customer experience, which was great because it was totally tied into like the marketing that I was doing back in my own business, but just in a completely different environment. And I also met my husband while I was doing that because he's this like polar expedition guy, not knowing, of course, that he would end up being my husband. But so it just ended up being something that I kept going back to, like seasonally. I would go down, I would press pause on my business and run off to Antarctica. And then what eventually happened is that I saw a need or an opportunity, let's say, not a need. I saw an opportunity to open up my own company that specialized in polar expeditioning, using my husband and his twin brother. Can you imagine? This big Swedish Viking has a twin freaking brother. And they're like 6'3". They both have big red beards. They look straight out of the TV show Vikings. Like they look like they belong there. And they both do the same thing. They're both polar expedition leaders. So everybody knows them. And so I was like, oh my God, you guys, why don't we have a company? This is so dumb. Like, you guys have this great mythology. I've got the business smarts. Let's create an agency. So we did in 2015. We opened up an agency, started running this polar agency. And then last year, completely out of the blue, again, some friends of ours were like, hey, we're buying a ship. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, yeah, do you want to charter it? And I was like, sure. So, so we suddenly became operators overnight in the Arctic, because but when you're a polar expedition guide, you work in both places, right? Because there's like an austral summer. So like there's summertime in Antarctica, that's tourism time. And then the wintertime, it's pitch dark and there's ice everywhere. You can't go. And it's the same. So when you're not working in Antarctica, you're in the Arctic. So we, out of the blue, in May 2017, suddenly found ourselves as operators in the Arctic, meaning we charter our own ship and we take our own customers to go and see polar bears in the Arctic. Which, let me tell you, Beck, when you have never chartered a ship before and you don't know anything about contracts and you don't know anything about anything, and like and you suddenly have to come up with like $500,000 US to put down on this stuff, and you don't have it, you better get your shit together. Like, I have grown more as an entrepreneur in the past year than like you can possibly imagine. So that is what has brought me to now. And that's why you met me at 7 and 7, because I have all this expertise and an agency in Antarctica. I know that product inside and out, and I love it. It's our passion. It's our family passion, really, for like lack of not sounding cheesy.
I love it. I don't want you to stop talking. Let's go back to the boat. How do you even like, I love this about you actually. And I, even as like, before I even probably met you, I was like, I like her. Because you just say yes to things, right? You're like, you know what? Yeah. $500,000. How are we going to do it? Yeah. Figure it out. It's like the entrepreneurial, I don't know, there's some X factor about people like that. And I feel the same way. I'm like, okay, I've got to do this thing. How am I going to do it? Right? Yeah. Never raised $500,000 before. But I'm involved with projects that do. And like, yeah, it's a challenge that makes you excited, rather than a lot of people would be like, ugh, nah, like that's not for me, or like I'm just gonna stay safe. Totally.
Or they because they don't know the answers to the questions, they say it's impossible. Yeah, I can't do that. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to get that money. Therefore, I'm not going to try. They think I am not in a position to take on that challenge. And I think that's maybe what makes me different from the average person, is that I look at those challenges and I'm like, okay, this is a motherfucker. Let's figure it out. Like now we spend the next 6 to 8 months figuring it out. We find the answers, we find the money, we find the people. You know, that's what you really, honestly, as an entrepreneur, that's all you're ever doing.
It's just like
You are making things happen. You are fine, because none of us know out of the gate. None of us know anything about marketing, about contracts, about client procurement, nothing. So you have to figure that out. But then once you figure it out and you have a business that's humming along and you're making money and you're like enjoying things, when you're ready to level up, and this is where I come in with my business consultancy stuff, when you're ready to level up, there's a whole new shitload of stuff that you have to figure out and you have to learn. It's like you never know everything.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And so I remember like when we got this opportunity with the ship, I mean, it's just an absolutely colossal amount of risk as well, right? Because anything could go wrong with the ship. There are polar bears where we're going, like there's actual physical danger. We have to carry guns. There's all kinds of things that could go wrong, right? I've already been in an aeronautical disaster where the ship almost like sank, not in the Arctic, but in the Antarctic. So like, I know what can go wrong. Mm-hmm. And so you're putting your neck out a lot. And I thought about that quite a bit. And of course, my husband, who's more of like, let's say a normal person, not like an entrepreneurial person, right from the get-go, and still to this day is like, this is insane. We can't do this. We can't do this. We can't do this. And I'm like, yeah, we can. And we are. We're doing it. I own 100% of the shares in the company, so we're doing it. So you know, there's something. Some people, I think, are able to look at that risk and look at the unknowns and go, well, we just figure it out. And I took a lot of inspiration, strangely enough, from the Richard Branson story of when he started his airline.
I love that story.
He had to go to like 300 banks and everyone kept saying, no, you're a record label owner. Like, why the hell are you opening an airline? Like, no. And everyone said no until someone said yes. Mm-hmm. And I just like, I literally, like, I thought about that every day during the early stages. And I was just like, I don't care how many no's it takes. I'm going to get my yeses. And like, keep in mind, mm-hmm. I am, as much as I can talk anyone's ear off, I am a huge introvert. Like, I fucking hate talking on the phone.
Me too.
Talking to strangers or like having to call people and like pitch myself or my company or my products or whatever. I hate it. But I was like, I'm going to make this work, because there were so many factors that were in our favor, like just a colossal amount of factors in our favor around expanding the business in this way, that I thought we would be absolute idiots not to. And what we're creating is the dream of everybody who works in our industry. Every polar guide wishes that they could hire their own ship and do their own thing without a head office telling them, you can't do this, you have to do that, whatever. It's a dream to have that kind of autonomy. So we're doing it.
I just love it. There is something about that attitude. It's like just a can-do attitude. I remember when I started my first company ever, like had less than no idea what I was doing. Like, I literally quit my job and was like, I've made these people so much money, I need to figure out how to make myself money. So I freaking flew to China, because I don't know they have agents that can source stuff in China for you. I was like, I guess I have to go to China and like find a product. And I found these products and I was like, I guess I have to ship them to New Zealand. Like, what sizing thing? Like, I shipped these bean bags over, and I just feel like you just solve the problems. You've people to sell them to. Where can I go? I'll do that. And it's just constant. It's constant work, but it doesn't really feel like work, because it's like we enjoy those challenges. Yeah,
exactly. It doesn't. I mean, I guess I'm in some ways in a good position because I'm not worried about paying the bills, right? I think if I was not making any money and I was trying to grow something with a huge amount of risk, it might be different. But I already had a business humming along that sort of just works independently of me, whether I'm like really in it or not. And so then the next level of going on to this thing with the ship and stuff and doing all this polar expedition work, it's still super risky. I mean, it's the kind of business that could like bankrupt you and make you go under if something went wrong, right? But like, what the fuck? If you never try, how are you ever going to see what's possible? You know, like, of course there's risk. I think we have this like really shitty thing that's instilled in us in like the standardized schooling system of like, you should always choose the safe route. I mean, think of how many parents even tell you, don't become an artist. Mm-hmm. There's no there's no guarantee. You're probably always going to be poor or whatever. You should get something secure. You know, we're really discouraged from doing anything that doesn't sort of have an element of real security in it. And I don't negate that is necessary for the majority of people, right? Absolutely, it's necessary. But at the same time, if you're not one of those people, if you're someone who's a little bit kind of on the outside, on the fringe, if you've stepped outside of the matrix a little bit, a lot of multi-passionate people fall into that category. There's a lot of people who, I consider myself someone like this, who I don't know much, but I have a crazy work ethic. So like, if I don't know it, I will find out, I will make it happen. And what happens when you're that kind of person is that the way that you're perceived starts to precede you, like people go, oh, Heather, like I can't tell you how many people have said to me since we kind of ventured out into this new area. They're like, oh, Heather, if you're involved in this, it's going to work. And I'm like, cool. That's so cool.
That's the kind of thing people saying about you, for sure.
It's so great because somehow whatever I've done in the past has built up the mythology around who I am and how I operate, that now it's being thrown back to me. And that is energizing. I'm like, if you guys think if Heather's involved, it's going to work, then you're also people who are going to help me succeed, right? Because when you get all these people that believe in you, like that's when the sort of like, magical resources start to appear and people get connected to you and stuff, so it's interesting. I'm like going off in left field, but it is very interesting to see like what happens and how things can snowball. And the reason I'm saying this, I don't by any means mean to be saying like I'm so awesome, because I'm like a normal person who I'm like, I have all the fears and insecurities of everyone else, but I say it as sort of an educational thing, like to anyone who's kind of in earlier stages or just starting to dip their toes in the water of uncertainty and risk and trying new things, or trying, going out on a big uncertain branch in business. Keep on going, because you eventually, you build up that myth around yourself of someone who's reliable and gets shit done and does really cool stuff and takes risks. And then it becomes bigger than you.
Yeah. And I like that you've said that it was a roller coaster and there was all sorts of shit that went down in the first couple of years probably. And you started this other business first and learned how to make that, so the whole thing is like a process. It's not like one day you were just in a job and then you woke up and were like, I want to be a polar explorer. I'm going to go and like, it doesn't work like, usually it doesn't work like that. There's all this backstory and everything.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of being in the trenches. For sure. You can't escape that. Anyone who thinks that you don't have to go through a little bit of a rite of passage is delusional.
I know. And one thing I like to cover with on this podcast is like, what experiences have you had that have really been, and like, I want to get as real as possible, because I've had some like seriously real, I guess I've hit rock bottom a few times. And I want to know like at what points in your life have you been like, holy shit balls, this was a bad idea, or like, I don't think that I could do this. Like, I call them like crying on the floor moments.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've experienced those, but I definitely. So yeah, I would love to hear about a time that something happened and you're just like, oh fuck.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I would have to say that like, I'm pretty self-preserving. So I can't think of scenarios where I've made decisions that have resulted in things going so bad that I was like, oh shit. But certainly in the early stages of my business, like 2011 into 2012, kind of right in the early months that I was living in Peru, I really wasn't generating a lot of consistent income. It was really all over the map. Some months were great and I could like pay the rent and everything was fine. And other months it just went shitty. And there was nothing. Sometimes 2 months in a row, I just wouldn't make anything because I had I had like a mailing list of 100 people. Nobody knew who I was. I had a shitty website. It didn't really, So there were times then when I felt like all I was doing was working and like trying to market myself, probably missing the mark a lot of the time because, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like it takes a long time, a lot of trial and error until you start to kind of hit your stride. So there was a lot of time in that first 18 months where I would be on the floor, like in my bathroom with my back in knots crying, thinking, how am I going to make this work? Because for me, Beck, there was no plan B. I was not going back to a job. Like there is no fucking way that I'm going to do that. And so the anguish came out of like this is not working. I don't know what will make it work. And it has to start working now because this is it. This is it. I have jumped and I'm not going back, you know? And it was so hard. And I was with a partner at the time. This is before I met my husband. I was with a partner at the time that was completely not in the online digital nomad world. He was like a complete office person and like didn't really have much empathy for what I was going through and didn't understand. To be quite honest, was one of those people who was kind of like, so like, when are you going to get sort of tired of trying to make this online thing work and like get a real job again, you know?
Heard that one a few times.
Like he never said it, but I know what he was thinking, you know? And so, and like to make matters worse, I had basically been like the sugar mama of that relationship for the better part of a decade because I had this really fancy pharmaceutical job. So I had shitloads of money before. I made way more money than he did. Mm-hmm. And I went from having that and our car that was covered by the company and our internet and like all this kind of stuff. And I was able to travel the world with him, no problem, because I had lots of cash, to not having anything, to being on the floor in the bathroom with my back in knots, with him carrying the expenses, which, come on, it's in Peru. It wasn't expensive, you know? But like to have your primary partner being like, how long am I going to have to pay for things after me having carried so much prior? I was just like, the pressure on me was so fucking shitty. I can't even tell you. So that was like for me, and that was like up and down over, you know, the course of at least a year. I was going through these phases of real darkness and shit. Yeah. And then things started to turn around in 2013, thank God, like quite dramatically. But so that was really hard. But also to kind of go back before that, and these aren't things that were sort of by my own design, let's say, but I had a really shitty scenario growing up where my parents divorced really young. When I was really young, I was 10. And I have two sisters, an older and a younger sister. And my mom had always been a stay-at-home mom. But when my parents divorced, my dad got full custody of us. And we didn't see our mom for 10 years after that. And so, but my dad was an airline pilot, so he was almost never home. And so what that ultimately resulted in, I mean, he was an airline pilot and he is a total abusive asshole who like, he's a sociopath. He doesn't care about other people. So from 10 years old on, essentially, I was raising myself. You know, like I didn't have anyone, there was no soft place to land. We were isolated from all of our relatives. We were isolated from all of our friends of the family. I was just stuck in this sort of like locked into this, you know, place with my dad, and we could only interact with people that he said we could interact with. And then when I was 14, he moved me and my little sister to Central America, further isolating us from anything. There was no internet then. This is 1994, right? Like I had no way of being in contact with even my own older sister who was at university. So those all like from 10 to 20 was like the resilience and the self-reliance that I had to build to get through those years without going completely off the rails was intense. And, you know, then when I was 21, I stopped talking to my dad because he's a horrible, horrible, abusive human being. And because I didn't have the pittance that he was giving me at the time anymore, like I had nobody helping me financially at all. I really didn't have much financial help from when I moved out when I was 17, but there was a little bit from 17 to 21. I ended up living in a garage in Vancouver and driving this like death trap of a car that I paid $1,300 for to get to my 2 jobs to put myself through university. So I was like 2 shitty jobs, going to school full time, my bed was in the carport and my cooking stove, my camping stove was like in this little alleyway with a cover in Vancouver. Like it was amazing. But you know, I wasn't like, oh, poor me, I'm poor. I was like, fuck this shit. This is, this is awesome. And like, this is going to pass. This is just part of the journey. Like it's going to pass. Things are going to get better. Things are going to get better, you know? And so again, it wasn't totally by my design that those situations were my reality for so long of my earlier life. But I think that they very much gave me the tools and the character traits to later on approach things with like that kind of, I don't give a fuck attitude. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it work. Because I know I can. Because I have been there. I've been in the dumps. I've been especially in a place where I have no support. Like anyone listening who is what I would call parentless. Like you have parents, but they have nothing to do with you and they don't support you and you don't get any financial help and you don't get any like moral support, nothing. I'm sure there are people listening who have that, because I think actually it's more common in the nomad sphere. People who are nomadic sometimes become nomadic because they don't have that anchor, right? They don't have like a family anchor. I think when you don't have any of that support, as much as it fucking sucks, it also really fortifies you. It absolutely fortifies you.
I totally agree. I have always thought of it like, I know that if like I've had my worst case scenario, I guess there are worst case scenarios if I was dead and maimed or something, but like I've been, basically homeless in a foreign land with nothing, and I made it, and that's happened to me actually embarrassingly more than once. So, yes, it's not great. It's not something that I need to be like encouraging people to do, but I think for some people, and maybe you're one of them, we have to go through these things where our back is against the wall and we have to make something work. And sure, people can go through and they seem to have money and they seem to have never had these like difficult times. They're like, you only had $30. And I'm like, that was like a good day. Like,
yeah.
And I just think that some people don't need that and they can go through and things are great. But for me and for a few other people I've met, and maybe you're one of them, we just need to have this back to the wall, we have to make it work. There's nothing else. You got like the cold sweats, like freak, how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to get another job? Got to find a way to find a client. Got to I have to do something. And it's like your emergency number, which for most people is probably, $1,000, couple $1,000. Mine's like $20.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, for sure. Me too. Do you know, when I was living in that carport, I used to have, this is back, of course, when we used CDs. And so I had this collection of CDs because I'm a crazy music person. I had this collection of CDs. And by the third week of the month, I knew that my 2 crappy jobs that I was working weren't going to, the paycheck wasn't going to get me to the end of the month. And so I would look through my CDs and I'd pick out 5 and I'd go, okay, I can live without these 5. And of course, this is before digital music. I didn't know that one day CDs wouldn't matter. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to take these big 5. And there's a place in downtown Vancouver, or there was a place, I don't know if it's still there, called Big Charlie's, where it was like a huge CD store, used CD store. And I would go down to Big Charlie's and go to the little teller window and sell them to Big Charlie's for $3 a piece. And I would get $15. And that $15 could get me through to the end of the month. And I would eat rice and beans or whatever, and put a little gas in the car. And I did that for so long, and so I feel like I don't think that people need to have these bottom out stories in order to be successful by any stretch. You can come from a great place and have lots of expendable capital and lots of support and whatever, and still be motivated to do amazing things and to build really impactful businesses, no question. But the people like you and I who have been at the bottom, often through no real fault of our own, who have been at the bottom and have had no safety net, you learn something that is non-transferable. It's only for the people who know that feeling of, I have no safety net, I have $20 or I have $15 to get through to the end of the month, what's next? It's like a emotional skill set that you can only learn by being in it,
Yeah. Yes, super cool. It's so nice to meet someone that understands that, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I feel like the weirdo in the room. Okay, how much time do we have? I'm getting into this conversation. It's awesome. Shall we do actually, let me ask you one more question. What changed between that time and that kind of mindset versus there must have been some catalyst or a moment or series of moments that you were like, wait a second, I can get clients. It must have been sometime in Peru, I would say, when you suddenly started getting, wait a second, I can do this, and business started to work.
So from when things weren't working to when things really started to work?
Yeah, was there a mindset shift? There's usually something like that.
It wasn't so much of a mindset shift as it was a showing up shift, I think. I started showing up a little bit differently with the way that I was being in my business. So in the beginning, I was right. Like if you go back to 2012 and you read some of my blog posts, for example, even me, I'm going back and I'm like, I said that? That was really insightful. Oh my God, I thought I was really dumb in 2012. But so there's some really good stuff that I put out, but there's also a lot of sort of more like mechanical, 10 steps to something, like didn't have a lot of personality in it. And at some point, the gloves came off. And it was just because I was like, that's it. I've been playing too small. Like, I think I got tired of knowing that I could affect massive change, not only in people's lives, in people's businesses, but also in their lives, because I'm a life coach. So when I deal with people, I deal with them not just on a, like, here are like strategy, next steps for your business, but it's like, what's happening in here? I'm pointing at my head for people listening. What's happening in here? Because like 99% of why you're stopped up in your business is psychological. It really is. It's fear, and it's lack of confidence, and it's lack of ability to make really solid decisions for yourself, which isn't a negative. It's a learned skill, and you need to figure out how to do that. And that's part of like what I work with people. And so I was like, fuck this, man. I can help people so much, and I'm not reaching the people that I can help. The gloves are off. And so I just hit a wall. I hit a wall of not wanting to continue not earning enough money. And I started being just much more me, I started like posting videos and doing rants on Facebook and like sending much more personal emails to my lists and being really real, and people really responded. They were like, wow, that's exactly how I feel. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's talk.
Yeah. It's the authenticity that like brings people closer to you, whereas I think a lot of times people are like, oh, I'll do these lists because lists are popular, list posts, they're popular, or like, oh, I'll say this popular opinion because I think people will like it more. But like, if you want the day that you're like, I don't give a fuck, I'm just gonna be myself and let's see what happens. Oh, that guy's offended. Oh well, like, yeah, it's you attract, you attract your tribe.
Yeah, you really do. And it's not to say that being yourself is a strategy. It's not the thing that's going to bring in clients, but being yourself to me is a baseline of how you're going to start to truly leverage what you have to offer. And then you put the strategy behind that, because now you're getting the right people in your fold, and then you start meeting their needs and you start giving them the value that they need. But you don't have these shitheads coming in who are the wrong fit and who are going to waste your time or are like totally different. Like, it's a baseline to be yourself so that you attract those right people. And, to kind of be a little bit more clearer in answering your question, like, what was that point? What was that shift? I just got fucking tired of being an accomplished person who's done a lot with my life and taken a lot of risk and not being compensated. I was like, that's it. I'm ready to earn money now. This is stupid.
I love it. I know there's going to be so many people that resonate with that feeling, for sure.
Yeah.
Are you ready to do a quickfire round?
Sure.
It's like a game show. I love it. Okay. So just
scared.
I know. Everyone's like, oh, it's not that bad. Also, I usually like talk too much, so it defeats the purpose of the quickfire round, but here we go anyway.
Okay.
What book are you reading right now?
Oh, I'm reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Oh, yes. Amazing. I bought that and then lost. See, I'm talking. I bought that and then lost it halfway through, so I really need to rebuy it. But it was really
it's excellent.
What's your best nomadic memory?
Oh, building a course, like writing the content for my course, The Leap Guide, while I was road tripping in Iceland. It was magical. It was amazing. My husband was driving and I was just like on my computer and then looking out the window at these, I was like, oh my God, it's Icelandic horses and volcanoes everywhere. And then I'd like type some more. It was a really cool place to be creating a course.
Super cool. So how long were you in Iceland for?
On that, we go a lot because I'm half Icelandic. On that particular trip, we were doing a 17-day road trip all around the country.
Bucket list, definitely.
Yeah.
What is your favorite city in the world?
Oh, I don't have one, actually. I don't have a favorite city. I love a lot of cities for a lot of reasons, but there's not one that sticks out, unfortunately. Okay. It's a boring answer.
I know, that sucks. Let's edit that out. Just kidding. What is a cause that you care about?
I care about, actually, a friend of mine does yoga in prison in South Africa. And I really care about that. I generally speaking animals, because I think humans are mostly shitty, to be honest. I think we're fuckers and ruining the planet. So I love animals. I love elephants, really love elephants and rhinos. But I also think that we need to do a better job of taking care of our humans. And I really, really care about rehabilitation. And so my best friend who does yoga in prisons in South Africa and changes these people's lives, I think is pretty fucking awesome.
That is cool. What is a lofty goal that you have that you might be nervous to talk about?
Ooh. Okay, I'm just going to make something up on the spot.
Yeah, like a big thing that you would like, wow, maybe I could do that one day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one would be an astronaut. I've always said to my husband, I want to be an astronaut. And I don't mean like be a science astronaut. I mean being a person, a human being who goes into space. That's a lofty goal. But from a business perspective, I would really love it if 10 years from now, if Twin Tracks Expeditions, my polar expedition company, was like boss, like one of the big players in the Arctic, and I was an owner, but I wasn't running it.
Ooh, that's awesome. That's a good one. All right, well, last thing, if someone is like resonating with this conversation and they're like, man, I really feel like I could go and do something great, but I've got the fear, I've got my job or whatever that's stopping me, all these reasons. What is your advice to that person?
Oh, my advice to that person is to feel the fear and do it anyway. That's always been one of my biggest mottos. I feel fear all the time and I tell it to take a side seat, like I live in fear, but I'm like, whatever, we're cool. We can coexist. I'm going to do it anyways. So do what you really desire to do in this life in spite of the fear, with the fear, holding the hand of the fear, because this is your only life, man. This is your one chance. Like, what the fuck? Nobody is going to hand you anything, so go out and chase it.
I love it. Where can people find more information about you? Because obviously every single person's going to be like, oh my God, Heather. And race to their website right now. Where can we find out more?
Yeah, you can find more at heatherthorkelson.com. That's my coaching and consulting site. I really recommend, even if you're not someone like my opt-in says, if you've hit a business plateau, like come on in. Even if you haven't hit a business plateau, even if you're just sort of in the early stages of business or you just like what I'm saying today, get on my mailing list because I am really personal with it and I'm really high value. Like I don't fuck around. I'm not going to send you like boring messages with sales, whatever in it. Like I talk to my people like they're my closest friends. And I have a hugely high retention rate. So I want to create relationships with people. I think that's really critical and important. So if you like this interview, come to heatherthorkelson.com, sign up, become my friend. I want you in my inner circle. And if you just want general inspiration about like getting better at being human and finding the courage to do what you want in the world, go to Republic of Freedom, my big collective. Like that's been around since 2011. There's shitloads of blog posts and videos from forever. We have a podcast now. So republicoffreedom.com.
Cool. All those links are going to be in the show notes. We'll make sure that they're there. I'm so excited to have talk to you for this long. Let's do it again like really soon. Like
yeah.
This one. Thanks. So good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me back. This is awesome.